It started with a smile, just a small, polite smile across the room. I was holding 2 glasses of wine, weaving between clusters of old friends and fake laughter, and I saw her smile at him like I wasn't even there. It was a college reunion. 15 years since we'd last stood in that campus auditorium. 15 years since we all scattered into adulthood, some with more to show than others. I had built a steady career, a quiet life, and thought I had a solid marriage. I thought I knew her. Her name is Claire. And the man she smiled at, the one who made her eyes light up in a way I hadn't seen in years, was Adam. I only knew about him in fragments. Claire didn't talk about him much. Just one of those could-have-beens, she said. It was never serious. That's what she told me during one of our long talks early in our marriage, lying in bed with the fan humming overhead, sharing the past like it was all behind us. But the way she looked at him tonight told me I'd been fed a lie. "Hey, babe," I said, nudging her arm, handing her the glass. "Who's that guy you were smiling at?" She took the wine with a quick, almost guilty nod, like I'd caught her texting someone she shouldn't. "Oh, that's Adam." Just Adam. Her voice dipped when she said it. Not my old friend or a guy from class. Just a name. Like it should mean nothing. I tried to smile. I'm good at smiling when I'm uncomfortable. "You guys were close, huh?" She looked up at me. "Not really, just a blast from the past." I could have left it there. I should have. But something tightened in my chest, and I couldn't shake it. The night moved around us, people laughing too loudly, music playing too softly. I saw Adam making his way through the crowd, greeting people with that effortless confidence. He looked like he hadn't aged a day. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, revealing tanned forearms and a tattoo that wasn't there in college, apparently. People gravitated to him like he was the main event. And then he came to us. "Claire." His voice was low, familiar, intimate. He didn't even look at me at first. She smiled again, bigger this time. "Adam." They hugged. I stood there like an afterthought, still holding my half-empty glass. When they finally broke apart, she turned to me. "This is my husband, Mark." Adam extended his hand. "Hey man, Mark, right? I've heard so much about you." I shook his hand, firm. "Wish I could say the same." He laughed like I'd made a joke. Claire looked between us, but she didn't say anything. They started catching up. Stories from their old dorm, some inside jokes I couldn't follow. I stood there, nodding, trying not to show how much it stung. She laughed at things he said with a softness I hadn't heard in years. Like he was reaching into a part of her she'd closed off from me long ago. Eventually, someone called Claire over, an old roommate or sorority sister, and she excused herself. Adam and I were left alone. "So," he said, swirling his drink, "you two been married long?" "8 years," I said. He whistled. "That's solid. She always said she wanted something real." I blinked. "She said that." He smiled, not answering. Just sipped his drink, like he was savoring a secret. Later, I found Claire talking with him again, away from the main crowd near the back patio where string lights hung like stars. She was leaning in. Not touching him, not quite, but close. Too close. I watched for a moment. Something inside me wanted to go over there, make a joke, put my arm around her and mark territory like some insecure fool. But I didn't. I turned away, pretending I wasn't unraveling. I talked to people, smiled, nodded, answered questions about my job and life. But my eyes kept drifting. Back to them, back to her. I found my old friend David near the bar. He was 2 beers deep and loose with his words. "Man, you okay?" he asked, noticing my expression. "Yeah, why?" He leaned in. "You just look like someone stole your lunch." I chuckled, forced. "Just tired. Long week." He looked across the room. "Claire and Adam, wow, that's a weird one." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" He shrugged. "Didn't you know? They were like obsessed with each other back then. Everyone thought they'd end up married." My mouth went dry. She said it wasn't serious. David gave me a look. "Come on, man. Claire used to skip class to hang out in his dorm. He got into that car accident sophomore year and she slept in his hospital room for 3 nights. Not serious. That was the real deal. The glass in my hand felt like it might shatter." I set it down. I wanted to confront her right there, but instead, I went outside. Air. I needed air. The night was cold against my skin, and I realized I was sweating. I stood there in the dark for a long time trying to collect myself. My hands were shaking, and then I heard voices. Laughter. Low, familiar voices. I followed the sound. They were on the other side of the garden hedge, near the side path behind the venue, Claire and Adam. I stopped walking. "I missed this," she said, her voice soft. "Me too," he replied. "You look exactly the same." "You don't. You look better." "Claire," he paused. "Why didn't we fight harder?" There was silence. Then I heard her say something that cracked the ground under me. "Because I was afraid of how much I loved you." I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I turned and walked away before I heard more. I felt like I was going to be sick. My mind was racing, replaying everything. The way she'd laughed, the way she smiled at him, the way I had been invisible all night. I went to the restroom and stared at myself in the mirror. My face was pale, lips tight, eyes wide. I looked like a man who'd been mugged and left to crawl home. I splashed water on my face. And then I made a choice. No more pretending, no more silence. I walked back inside, calm on the outside, but storming within. I found her near the bar again, laughing with a group. She spotted me and smiled like everything was fine. I smiled back, took her hand. "Dance with me?" I asked. She blinked. "Now?" "Yeah, now." She followed me to the dance floor. A slow song was playing. We swayed, our bodies close. "I heard you," I whispered. She pulled back slightly. "What?" "I heard you. Behind the hedge. With Adam." Her eyes widened. Panic. I kept smiling, for the sake of the crowd. "So, how long's it been going on?" "Mark, How long?" She didn't answer. The silence said everything. I nodded slowly. "Got it." I kissed her forehead, gently, then walked away. She stood there frozen, and I saw Adam across the room, watching us. He knew. He knew I knew, and I wasn't done yet. I walked toward the stage, toward the microphone. Because if I was going to bleed tonight, I wasn't going to do it quietly. I walked up to the mic like I was in a trance, but I knew exactly what I was doing. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat, but my steps were steady. I didn't care who was watching anymore. For the first time in a long time, I felt wide awake. There was a guy giving a toast, something about old memories and new beginnings, and I waited just long enough for the polite applause before stepping up next to him. He looked at me, confused. I smiled and tapped the mic. "Sorry," I said, clearing my throat. "I won't take long, just needed a moment." The crowd turned toward me. Glasses stopped clinking. Conversations fell away. There's something about a man who never speaks suddenly deciding to. People listen. Claire stood frozen by the bar, her face a pale mask. Adam, just a few feet away, had his arms crossed, watching me with that same confident posture, but there was a twitch in his jaw. I wanted to say something about reunions. I began, my voice clear. About what it means to come back to the past. About what it means to see people again. To remember who we were and how far we've come. A few nods, murmurs of agreement. I kept going. "You know, I came here tonight excited, nervous too. My wife, Claire, she went to college here. She used to talk about this place like it was sacred. So I was honored to come with her, to see where it all began. I let that hang for a second. And I thought I understood what that meant. But tonight I realized there are parts of her I've never known. Parts of her that never really came home." Claire's eyes were wide now. She took a step forward. I met her gaze, but I didn't stop. "I learned something tonight. Not from a confession. Not from an argument. I learned it the way most of us learn the worst things, by accident. A word here, a look there, a voice you're not meant to hear." Adam looked away, jaw tightening. "See, sometimes the past isn't just the past. Sometimes the past is something that's been living in the background the whole time, waiting for the right night to come alive again. And sometimes the person you trust most in the world, your partner, your love, your best friend, they're not standing beside you. They're sneaking off behind a hedge with someone who used to be everything." A gasp somewhere in the crowd, then silence. I looked around the room, eyes moving slowly from face to face. "Claire," I said, turning to her, "I loved you with everything I had. I made a life with you. I gave you years, loyalty, a future. But tonight I realized I've been living in someone else's shadow. Her lips parted, but no words came. I don't know when it started. Maybe it never really ended. Maybe he was always the one you wanted, and I was just the safe choice. I don't know. But I do know one thing. I'm not going to compete with a ghost anymore. Or a man who clearly never left your heart. People were shifting uncomfortably. Some looked at Adam now with curious eyes. Others whispered to each other, trying to piece it all together. Claire looked like she might faint. I came here thinking I was the husband, I said quietly. Turns out I was just the placeholder. I set the mic down gently. The sound echoed like a final nail in a coffin. Then I walked off stage. Claire followed me. Mark, wait, please, she said, catching up just outside the ballroom doors. Can we talk, please? I turned around and looked at her, really looked at her. Her makeup was perfect, but her expression was falling apart. Her hands trembled slightly. You lied to me, I said quietly now. For how long? She shook her head. It wasn't, Mark, I didn't mean for this to happen. I didn't plan any of this. But it happened. So how long? She swallowed hard. Just a few weeks. After the reunion invite came, we reconnected on social media. He messaged me. We were just talking at first, and then she couldn't finish. And you thought you'd test it out in person? Just to see if the spark was still there? It wasn't like that. You told him you were afraid of how much you loved him. She flinched. You heard that? I did. Tears welled in her eyes. I didn't mean to hurt you. I laughed, bitter. But you did. You stood next to me tonight and acted like everything was normal. Like we were still us. We are us, she insisted, stepping closer. Mark, this was a mistake. I got caught up in the past. It didn't mean... Don't, I said, holding up a hand. Don't tell me it didn't mean anything. Don't insult me like that. Her lips trembled. She tried to reach for me, but I stepped back. Did you sleep with him? I asked. She hesitated. That was enough. I nodded. Got it. I turned to leave again, but this time she grabbed my arm. Mark, please, don't do this. We can fix it. We can go to therapy. I begged you to be honest with me, I said. I've always just wanted the truth from you, and you chose him. Not just tonight, Claire, emotionally. Maybe for a long time now. She was crying openly now. I was confused. I still love you. No, I said softly. You love the version of me who doesn't know what you did. That guy's gone. I walked away, back into the building. Not to rejoin the party, but to gather my coat, my keys. People stared, some whispered. A few tried to make eye contact. I kept my head high. As I reached the door, I passed Adam. He had his hands in his pockets and that same cool expression on his face. Hey, he said, almost like a reflex. Listen, man. I stopped and looked at him. You don't get to talk to me, I said. You don't get to call me man like we're friends. You knew she was married. You knew I was standing right there. She came to me, he said a little too quickly. Of course she did, I replied. But you didn't stop her. And that tells me everything I need to know about both of you. He shifted, finally uncomfortable. She's all yours, I said, my voice steady. Good luck building something with the pieces you broke. Then I turned and walked out the door into the night. The cold air hit me like a wave, but it felt clean. I didn't have a plan, I didn't have answers. But I had one thing I hadn't had all night: clarity. I didn't lose my wife tonight. I just finally saw the truth. I spent the night in a quiet hotel on the edge of town. One of those places where the hallways smell like old coffee and the pillows are too thin. But it didn't matter. I wasn't looking for comfort, I just needed space. I lay on the bed staring at the ceiling for hours, not crying, not raging, just empty. I kept replaying the night over and over in my mind. Claire's face when she realized I knew. Adam's smug calm giving way to discomfort. The silence that followed my speech, heavy and unforgettable. It wasn't the kind of silence you get after drama or gossip. It was the silence of truth. I didn't sleep much, maybe an hour here or there. Morning came slowly, the kind that sneaks in through heavy curtains and makes the world feel colder than it should be. I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time. holding my wedding ring between my fingers, staring at the tiny engraving inside it. Forever and always. It felt like a joke now, a cruel one. My phone buzzed around 7 a.m. I didn't have to check it to know who it was. Claire. She'd called 3 times during the night, texted even more. I finally looked. Please come home. We need to talk. I can explain. I love you. I made a mistake. One night, that's all it was. Please don't throw everything away. I'll do anything. Therapy, whatever it takes. Just talk to me. I didn't reply, not yet. I needed to find myself in the silence first, before anyone else tried to speak for me. By mid-morning, I checked out and drove to the lake. It was a spot Claire and I used to visit before things got complicated. I remember how she loved to sit on the edge of the dock, feet dangling over the water, laughing about nothing. I parked and walked to that same dock. The air was crisp, and the sky was that kind of bright blue that only shows up after a storm passes. I sat there for a long time, no music, no phone, just wind and water, and I let myself remember everything. I remembered the first time I met Claire, how her smile felt like something permanent. I remembered our wedding day, the way she trembled when she said her vows. I remembered lazy Sundays and late-night arguments and quiet apologies whispered in the dark. I remembered the good and the bad. And then I remembered her voice in the bushes behind the ballroom. I'm scared of how much I still love you. I hadn't misunderstood. I hadn't overreacted. She said it. She felt it. Maybe she still did. And that was the hardest part. It wasn't just that she cheated. It was who she cheated with, what he represented. He wasn't just an old fling. He was the ghost she kept hidden. The what if she never let go of. And now that ghost had stepped back into her life like he never left. And I wasn't willing to haunt myself to keep her happy. By noon, I finally texted her back. I'll come home, but only to talk. No promises. Her reply came fast. Okay, I'll be here. Thank you. I drove back with a heavy heart, but no longer broken, just resolved. When I walked through the door, she was waiting in the living room, sitting stiffly on the couch like she'd been holding her breath all morning. She looked tired, like she hadn't slept either. Her eyes were red, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Thank you for coming, she said. I nodded, setting my keys on the table, but staying near the door. You wanted to talk, I said. So talk. She stood and took a step toward me, then stopped. I know you hate me right now, she said, her voice quiet. I know I broke something between us. But I'm not ready to give up. I'm not. I said nothing. She took a shaky breath. It was one night. One stupid, impulsive night. I didn't plan it. I didn't go there expecting to fall back into old feelings, but I did. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Mark. I still said nothing. I never stopped loving you, she said, but I think maybe I never let go of him either. And that's my fault. I should have told you when he reached out. I should have shut it down before it even started. Why didn't you? I asked finally. She looked at me, eyes pleading. Because part of me wanted to feel what it was like again. I know how terrible that sounds. But I felt invisible lately. Like we were roommates, not partners. And then Adam messaged me and suddenly I felt seen. Desired. Her words stung more than I expected. You felt invisible, I echoed. And instead of talking to me, you ran to someone who left you years ago. She didn't answer. Claire, I get that relationships go through rough patches. I've felt it too. I know we've been drifting a bit, but I didn't think we were broken. We weren't, she whispered. We aren't. Not really. I think we are, I said, because trust isn't something you can repair with a few tears and a promise to try harder. You didn't just make a mistake. You made a choice. You chose him, not just physically, emotionally. And you kept choosing him, even after I walked into that party with you. She broke then, sobbing into her hands. Please don't leave me. I stood there for a long moment, watching the woman I'd built a life with come undone. And I wanted so badly to hold her, to say it would be okay. But I couldn't lie to her, not now. Not when I finally found the strength to stop lying to myself. I don't know what happens next, I said honestly. I don't know if we can fix this, but I do know I need space, time, clarity. She nodded, still crying. Are you leaving? For now, I said. I need to figure out who I am outside of this, outside of us. I packed a bag that afternoon. Just essentials. I didn't make a big scene. I didn't slam doors. She watched from the hallway, arms wrapped around herself like she was trying to keep from breaking apart. Before I left, I turned to her. I loved you more than anything, I said. And maybe someday I'll look back and remember the good more than the pain. But right now, I need to love myself more than I love the idea of fixing what you destroyed. She didn't answer. She just nodded. As I drove away, I felt something shift inside me, a strange mix of grief and relief. I didn't know what tomorrow would look like. Maybe we'd find our way back. Maybe we wouldn't. But for the first time in a long time, I felt something close to peace. I wasn't the man who got cheated on. I was the man who chose not to stay broken. And that made all the difference.